China's secret plan to control global shipping, and nobody noticed. What happens when the world's two busiest canals choke at the same time, while a third route no one owns becomes the only pressure valve? Ships are already paying for that answer. The Red Sea turns risky, Panama runs dry, and suddenly the deadliest waters on Earth look profitable. Most people think the Drake Passage is just Shackleton lore. It's becoming Plan C. I'll show you the math moving ships south, the invisible toll booths on land, and the quiet race to control pilots, data, and icebreakers. Watch to the end. One player built the Southern logistics chain years ago, and it isn't who you think. Why Drake suddenly matters. Okay, so here's what actually happened. Two separate crises stacked. Since late 2023, Houthi attacks in the Red Sea pushed insurers to slap war risk premiums on Suez transits. Container lines detoured around Africa, adding 10-14 days on Asia, Europe lanes, and spiking charter rates. At the same time, Panama's drought cut daily transits from typical mid-30s per day to as low as the high teens through early 2024, with depth limits forcing lighter loads. Capacity began to normalize only later, but shippers learned a hard lesson. Chokepoints can fail together. Now this is important because route choice is just math: days, fuel, risk. Cape of Good Hope adds distance but offers predictability. The Drake Passage. It's shorter for some Pacific, Atlantic swings if you cut diagonals, but the weather tax is real. So why even consider it? Because predictability can beat distance when insurers and schedules punish uncertainty in the Red Sea and queues in Panama. Here's where it gets interesting. The reroute calculus shifted from which canal to which risk. Under high war risk rates, a carrier saving 2 weeks around the Cape still eats bunker costs and schedule chaos. If Panama throttles again, the Pacific, Atlantic pivot needs a second hedge. That's when planners start sketching Southern contingency playbooks. Seasonal windows, convoy timing, prearranged pilots at punter arenas or Ushuaia, bunkering guarantees and spare parts cached near the Strait of Magellan. Most people think nobody's testing this, but majors quietly are. You won't see a press release that says we're going Drake, but you will see time charter clauses updated to allow alternate southern routing at master's discretion. Seasonal force majeure definitions widen to include security advisories and optional bunkering calls in the Magellan system. Expedition and research fleets already treat the passage like a known corridor. Commercial operators are borrowing their playbooks, whether routing, tighter maintenance cycles, and standby windows. Freight indices are hinting at permanent hedging, not panic. Cape premiums didn't snap back fast even when attacks paused. That tells you carriers priced a longer tail of risk. Insurers are experimenting too, lower deductibles for partner ports with audited SAR coverage and vetted pilotage. Surcharges waived when ships use approved southern nodes. Translation: go where the risk controls are predictable, get a break. If southern ports can prove faster inspections, reliable tugs, and winterized repair capacity, they become the safety discount. And psychologically, this reframes danger as managed risk, a narrative that keeps ops teams confident and CFOs calm. Now let's talk time and fuel, because that's what CEOs sign. For a large container ship, Cape versus Suez can mean 500 extra nautical miles, 10+ days depending on speed. Southern routes aren't a straight swap, but for Pacific South to Atlantic South cargo, hugging the Magellan system and skirting above the worst Drake weather can narrow the gap, if you trust the forecast. Everything changes when you can predict a 7-day window with 80% confidence and pre-stage support. Seasonality is the gatekeeper. Late austral spring to early autumn offers more workable windows. But that's exactly how contingency planning works. You don't flip your whole fleet. You shift the marginal voyages where the South saves time versus a Cape detour and beats the Red Sea insurance gamble. Bulkers and energy carriers usually move first, flexible schedules, fewer port calls. Liners follow only if the corridor can guarantee schedule integrity. That means pilots on call, bunkers ready, inspections smooth, and towage within minutes. The hook for planners: credible 7-day windows they can show to boards and insurers without getting laughed out of the room. You probably think storms kill this idea. They slow it, but they can be planned around. The real ship killer is uncertainty across the whole chain. Insurance that reprices mid-voyage, canal queues you can't see, pirates, and sudden depth limits. When CFOs compare risk-adjusted cost, a well-instrumented southern corridor starts to look like a hedge worth paying for, occasionally at first. Charterers are writing this into contracts. New clauses allow route flexibility based on security advisories and meteorological thresholds. Masters get authority to deviate south without breaching schedule guarantees if third-party models cross predefined risk lines. That's not a stunt. That's institutionalizing the option. What signals permanence? Look at orders and upgrades. Ice-class retrofits tick up not for Arctic runs, but for hull resilience in southern seas. Towage and SAR tenders near the Strait of Magellan expand. Bunkering operators secure low-sulfur fuel stocks with contingency volumes. And a couple of carriers have quietly trialed triangle loops. South America West Coast, Southern Hop, South America East Coast, learning crew rhythms and maintenance intervals in rougher water. Here's the part almost nobody noticed. One country already assembled the southern stack. Research bases for presence, satellite and ground stations for weather and routing, a growing polar ice-capable fleet, and financing lines into Patagonia logistics. The Drake Passage has no toll booth, but the services around it do. Control the pilots, the tugs, the data, and the insurance discounts, and you control the decision. We'll name names next, and yes, it matches the pattern you've seen in 130-plus overseas port stakes since the 2010s. Geographic reality check, the chokepoint nobody owns. Let's ground this in reality. The Drake Passage isn't a canal, it's a funnel where three oceans smash together. The Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Southern all converge through a roughly 600-mile gate with no walls, no locks, and no toll collector. But don't confuse no owner with no control. Control here lives in the supporting systems: ports, pilots, tugs, icebreakers, weather data, and search and rescue coverage. Here's what actually happens below the headlines. The Antarctic circumpolar current, the most powerful on Earth, threads through this gap and gets squeezed upward by the seabed. That's why storms ramp fast and waves stack. Predictability is the currency, and the only way to buy it is with information and response capacity. If you can forecast a workable window and guarantee assistance, you shrink the Drake's chaos into managed risk. That framing is a psychological switch for operators. Fear becomes protocol. Now this is important because shipping managers don't need a calm Drake. They need a corridor with known rules. And that corridor isn't just ocean. It's Ushuaia, Punta Arenas, Puerto Williams, and the Strait of Magellan network. These are the real gatekeepers. The state may not own the water, but it licenses pilots, sets port-state control standards, certifies tugs and line handlers, and decides who gets fuel first when stock's tight. Think of it as a layered gate. Layer 1, physical reality, storms, currents, ice. Layer 2, operational reality, pilots, SAR, repair, bunkering. Layer 3, informational reality, exclusive forecast models, seabed maps, and sensor arrays. You can't own the Drake, but you can own layers 2 and 3, and that's where leverage lives. Let me show you how power shows up without a flag on the chart. Pilots are scarce, experience is narrower than in typical sea lanes, and the Strait of Magellan's channels require local knowledge. If a port authority mandates pilotage for certain classes of vessels or weather conditions, it effectively creates a queue. If bunkering windows are rationed after a storm backlog, priority goes to whoever has pre-booked credit and shore-based storage on hold. Those are invisible tolls. Everything changes when seasonal corridors are mapped with granular storm data. Late spring to early autumn offers more workable windows, but the advantage comes from predictability, not averages. Proprietary models that assimilate buoy data, satellite wind fields, and localized wave spectra can turn a maybe into a go with 80% confidence. The port that plugs those models into a dispatcher's screen and an insurer's dashboard suddenly becomes the low-risk node. You probably think an unowned choke point means free-for-all. It's the opposite. Without a sovereign toll, the market builds the gate. Ports bundle services, pilotage, tugs, berthing, bunker logistics, rapid inspections into time guarantees. Miss the slot and costs cascade. Make the slot and insurers shave the premium. That's a private toll booth in everything but name. No canal, no fee? There's still a price. Call it service rent. The ship pays in delays avoided, in spare parts staged, in repair teams on standby who have actually seen that class of vessel before. Add icebreaker availability for fringe season escorts. Not military icebreakers, dual-use research and auxiliary platforms that can slot into rescue or channel-leading roles without breaching treaty lines. Presence without provocation. Here's where the information layer becomes king. Seabed mapping around approach routes reduces grounding risk in tight straits. Acoustic arrays pick up iceberg roll and drift signals earlier than satellite eyes. Weather buoys feed high-frequency updates into nowcasts that actually reflect microclimates off Cape Horn. Whoever runs those sensors can gate access to the best forecasts, or tie them to preferred customers and partner insurers. But here's the twist. Predictability is portable only if the land side is synchronized. A perfect weather window is useless if a ship can't get a pilot within an hour, bunkers within 6, or a tug on 10 minutes notice. That means standardized port playbooks, same checklists, same radio procedures, same inspection criteria across the southern nodes. The port that enforces consistency becomes the de facto coordinator of the passage. What about the unownable line? Maritime law keeps the water open, yes, but port state control can throttle speed through the system. Safety inspections framed as routine can slow non-partnered vessels. Environmental compliance checks can stretch a call by a day. Meanwhile, preferred users glide through a green lane because their data is pre-shared and their records pre-cleared. Remember this, predictability equals power. In the north, canals sell time. In the south, ports sell certainty. And certainty requires capital, weather tech, tug fleets, winterized yards, and trained pilots paid to linger on standby. That's why the real contest isn't for the Drake itself. It's for the land and data scaffolding wrapped around it. So the question is, who owns the passage? It's who builds the corridor. And when control shifts from water to land, the map points straight to two countries at the bottom of the Americas, one straddling the Magellan Gateway, the other crowning the Beagle Channel. They don't own the choke point, they own its levers. Now we meet the gatekeepers and the incentives shaping their choices. The gatekeepers, Chile and Argentina's levers. Everything changes when you zoom in on the southern shelf. Chile and Argentina don't own the Drake, but they control the knobs that make it usable. Ports, pilots, bunkers, repair yards, and the rules that decide who goes first when weather squeezes everyone at once. Think Punta Arenas and Puerto Williams on the Chilean side, Ushuaia and Rio Grande on the Argentine side. Add the Strait of Magellan and Beagle Channel as sheltered connectors. That's the practical corridor. Start with infrastructure. Punta Arenas is the veteran hub, deepwater berths, dependable tug fleet, established bunkering, and a service ecosystem that knows science vessels, trawlers, cruise ships, and naval auxiliaries. Ushuaia counters with scale and runway, big pier length, heavy lift cranes, and the largest Antarctic tourism throughput on Earth. Those tourist seasons weren't just for postcards. They trained a logistics workforce to turn ships fast in tight windows. When the South becomes a hedge route, that muscle memory matters. Pilotage is the first invisible toll. Both countries mandate pilots for certain classes and conditions in the Magellan and Beagle systems, and pilot rosters are finite. If a southerly blows and 5 rerouted ships show up at once, someone waits, unless they've pre-booked priority through a port agreement or a financing covenant tied to service levels. That's leverage you can't see on AIS, a 2-hour pilot dispatch versus 8. Bunkering is the second lever. In normal times, fuel suppliers balance tourism peaks, fishing seasons, and national fleets. In contingency mode, demand spikes are lumpy. Storage tanks, pipeline capacity, and barge availability become gatekeepers. Chile's network around Punta Arenas, plus depots feeding the Magellan system, lets operators stage low-sulfur VLSFO and MGO with option volumes. Ushuaia has suppliers, but depth, whether exposure and barge scheduling can stretch timelines unless pre-negotiated. Whoever expands onshore storage and locks guaranteed delivery windows can auction certainty to the highest volume customers. Repairs and spares? That's the third lever. Rougher seas mean more wear. Hull coatings, shaft seals, HVAC failures, sensor losses. Punta Arenas hosts yards and workshops that already service Antarctic programs, winches, crane hydraulics, comms gear. Ushuaia fields competent outfits too, but heavy-class drydock options are farther. The port that stockpiles class-approved spares and maintains 24/7 technician rosters quietly sells time insurance. Miss a weather window because a pump failed, and you've paid a hidden toll. Search and rescue coverage is the fourth lever, and it's marketable. Coast Guard assets, helicopter range, fast rescue craft, and joint SAR protocols let insurers reduce deductibles for ships that file pre-plans and sail with port-linked beacons. Chile's Maritime Authority has long covered the Magellan and Cape Horn approaches with practiced procedures. Argentina's Prefectura has the Beagle and Drake staging lanes. Publish response times, run exercises with foreign navies dressed as environmental drills, and you've turned presence into a routing incentive. Law and paperwork are the fifth lever. Bilateral port access rules, Coast Guard inspection regimes, and cabotage pressures can be tuned to nudge behavior. Declare standardized environmental inspections for southern transits. Offer green lanes to vessels that pre-submit data packages, use approved pilots, and accept random audit rights. For everyone else, routine safety checks stretch a call by a day. That's legal throttle framed as stewardship. Now financing. Both countries need capital to upgrade. And capital doesn't just buy cranes, it buys precedents. Lender covenants can stipulate preferred user lists, minimum tug availability, and ring-fenced fuel. If a Chinese policy bank finances a bunkering expansion or a pier extension, expect service-level agreements that quietly favor partner fleets or alliance carriers. Western credit guarantees can do the same if they show up with real tenor and political risk coverage. Debt shapes the queue. Domestic politics add friction and opportunity. Argentina faces sovereignty narratives, debt sensitivity, and the allure of foreign investment that doesn't lecture. Chile balances environmental norms, institutional capacity, and a tradition of maritime professionalism. Both can weaponize nationalism against foreign control while still cutting deals that tie services to specific consortia. The trick is packaging upgrades as national resilience with export multipliers. Jobs, training, downstream services, and an Antarctic science dividend. Cooperation versus competition, both. They'll compete for Southern Logistics Crown branding, Ushuaia's Antarctica gateway versus Punta Arenas' Magellan master node. But smart planners align playbooks, interoperable pilot standards, shared SAR compacts, mirrored inspection templates, and data sharing that feeds a single risk dashboard. Synchronized procedures then market two doors into one corridor. Ships hate surprises more than they love discounts. So who's funding the upgrades? Quietly, the courtships are active. Chinese-linked entities have kicked tires on pier extensions, fuel storage, cold ironing, and satellite ground stations. European and US-backed funds float credit lines for tug fleets, yard equipment, and SAR gear, often slower but with reputational premium. Insurers whisper about co-investing in weather buoys and port digital twins if they get exclusive model outputs. And one investor class wants what everyone needs: edge compute near the straits to run proprietary nowcasts tied to booking systems. Here's the tell to watch. When you see pilot academies expand intake, SAR exercises scheduled with foreign research vessels, and bunkering SLAs published with penalties paid in time, the corridor is professionalizing. When port authorities integrate vessel data, insurer thresholds, and meteorological triggers into a single clearance app, the invisible toll booth just went live. And when a financing term sheet includes preferred assistance sequence during congestion, you found the real owner of the line everyone will stand in. T's delivered. The money behind several of these moves wants more than port fees. They want data rights, dashboard control, and soft veto power over who gets cleared when windows close. We'll name them in a minute. China's long game in the south. Now we name names. The player building the southern stack early wasn't guessing. It was following a pattern it already proved elsewhere. Ports plus logistics, research bases, icebreakers, and data stations. Tie them together with financing, then wrap the whole thing in science. That stack belongs to China. Here's what actually shows up on the ground. In Patagonia, Chinese-linked capital has circled pier extensions, fuel storage, and logistics parks near Punta Arenas and around Tierra del Fuego, often via local partners or consortium structures that keep headlines quiet. The money isn't just for steel, it's for rights, priority berthing windows, data sharing terms, and covenants that trigger service guarantees for designated fleets. That's leverage without flags. It fits the broader pattern. More than 100 overseas ports with Chinese stakes since the 2010s and BRI financing that trades capital for operational influence. But the real backbone is dual-use logistics. Satellite ground stations in southern Chile and Argentina, publicly framed as civilian data reception, feed weather, ice, and routing models. Tie those to shipborne terminals and you've created a proprietary forecast loop. Layer in seabed mapping, acoustic sensors, and AIS augmentation, and suddenly your models beat everyone else by a day. In the Drake, a day is everything. Science is the cover, but it's also the delivery vehicle. China's Antarctic research footprint is expanding, with Kinling Station in the Ross Sea and a growing network of bases that require reliable resupply chains from South America. Every season teaches another logistics lesson. Tug requirements in foul weather, spare parts consumption rates, medical evacuation thresholds, and buffer stock design. Those lessons become operating procedures that commercial partners can adopt tomorrow. Icebreakers tie the story together. China's polar-class fleet, Zhulong and Zhulong 2, with a nuclear-powered concept under discussion, aren't warships but their presence platforms. They escort, they map, they test hull forms in harsh seas, and they train crews who can read the South like locals. In shoulder seasons, an ice-capable research vessel can become an unofficial channel leader for convoys framed as environmental monitoring. Treaty-compliant, operationally decisive. Now this is important because leverage stacks. Start with port improvements loosely linked to Chinese contractors or financing lines. Add bunkering storage where service-level agreements quietly preference partner carriers in congestion. Anchor a satellite station uplink nearby to guarantee superior data. Fold in a polar research vessel visit that rehearses SAR and environmental drills with local authorities. Then offer Insurers dashboard access that reflects all that capacity. Where do ships go? Where the dashboard says risk is lowest. Critics jump to militarization. That misses the mechanics. You don't need troops to steer a choke point. You need the pilots, the tugs, the forecast advantage, and the phone number that gets answered at 3 a.m. Dual use is the engine. Research stations with satellite dishes, meteorological networks that also refine maritime domain awareness, and university exchanges that train local pilots and technicians on Chinese-funded simulators. The output isn't a base, it's a habit of using your services first. Follow the supply chain. Chinese tourism flows already pass through Ushuaia. Cargo flows will follow if the corridor delivers time certainty. Financing sweeteners, discounted port fees for long-term volume commitments, escrow-backed fuel availability, and guaranteed towage, lock-in behavior. If you're a carrier staring at a storm-compressed window, you take the guaranteed slot. If the guarantee habit sits on Chinese-backed infrastructure, the influence compounds. You probably think treaty limits block this. The Antarctic Treaty and Madrid Protocol ban mineral exploitation and military measures, yes. But they don't ban logistics mastery, data ownership, or ice-capable research fleets. And inspections don't touch the decision layer. Who gets pilots first, who sees the best forecasts, who's pre-cleared with digital paperwork. That's lawfare via logistics, exactly the gray zone behavior noted by multiple governments in open reports. Talent is the quiet play. China's polar programs are training navigators, meteorologists, marine engineers, and SAR coordinators with polar experience. Crew rotations across research and auxiliary vessels build a bench that can populate joint exercises with southern authorities. The exercise labels say rescue and oil spill response. The outcomes are radio procedures, call trees, and muscle memory. When the storm hits, those habits pick the winner. Let's talk data again because that's the crown. Weather buoys seeded in partnership with local universities, high-frequency radar along key approaches, and satellite tasking prioritized for southern seas produce proprietary nowcasts. Feed that into a port digital twin, berth occupancy, tug cycles, pilot rest schedules, bunker barge positions, and you can sell time to the minute. Bundle an insurer into the same platform and you can sell cheaper time. Investments in Patagonia logistics look small on paper. A warehouse cluster here, a cold iron hookup there, an uplink dish on a hill. But they're anchor points for a network that scales. Each node reduces variability. Each contract captures another chunk of decision-making. The more ships that flow through your pre-booked services, the more data you collect, the better your models get, the more attractive your corridor becomes. That flywheel spins quietly. Now the question that matters. What does China want in return? 3 things. First, shipping leverage, routing influence that can be traded in broader negotiations. Second, treaty positioning, being the indispensable logistics partner before 2048 gives you a louder voice when the review door opens. Third, resource-adjacent data, seabed, currents, ice dynamics, usable later if rules shift, or sooner for cable routes and acoustic arrays. You don't need to own Ushuaia or Punta Arenas to guide the corridor. You need options contracts on services, data rights, and trained people in the loop. And you need your ice-capable assets making routine appearances that normalize your presence without provoking a flag fight. So when you see a Chinese research vessel coordinating a joint rescue drill off Cape Horn, a new satellite dish near a logistics park, and a financing term sheet that mentions bunkering SLAs and digital preclearance, connect the dots. That's the long game. Science on the masthead, logistics in the ledger, data in the vault. And the Drake, it doesn't need a toll booth when the turnstile is the dashboard you own. The treaty clock, 2048, and the review door. Okay, quick reality check on the rules that keep the South quiet. Antarctica runs under the Antarctic Treaty System, with the 1991 Madrid Protocol layered on top. The headline everyone remembers: no mineral resource activities other than scientific research. No drilling, no mining, and no military measures beyond using military assets in support of science. That's why you see icebreakers labeled research and exercises framed as rescue or environmental response. Presence but not garrisons. Now, this is important because 2048 isn't a switch that flips mining on. It's a review door. Article 25 of the protocol allows any consultative party to call for a review conference after 50 years from entry into force. 1998 plus 50 gets you to 2048. To convene that conference, 3/4 of consultative parties must agree. Then any change requires strong consensus and likely a new binding regime to regulate any future resource activity. Translation: hard to change, but not impossible. So what happens before 2048? Soft violations and gray zones do the heavy lifting. You don't mine, you measure. You don't build bases for war, you build dual-use logistics that make you indispensable. Environmental pretexts are the legal path. More monitoring, more protected area proposals, more station upgrades for safety. Each one justifies new weather buoys, higher power satellite dishes, more robust fuel caches, and stronger links to South American ports. That's logistics power, treaty compliant. Most people think the fight is over rocks under ice. The first prizes are actually data pipes. If you control climate observations, bathymetry, seabed character, ice dynamics, and cable routes, you set the terms for everything else. The party that owns the dashboards shapes traffic, insurance, and eventually the narrative about responsible access when debates heat up. The protocol bans resource exploitation, not knowledge. So the race is to map, model, and monitor at finer scales than anyone else. Here's where Lawfare shows up quietly. Inspections are allowed under the treaty. States can visit each other's stations to verify peaceful use. But inspections are episodic, planned, and limited. Meanwhile, dual-use equipment lives in the open. TT&C satellite ground stations for scientific satellites, high-frequency surface radars for ocean state, acoustic arrays for iceberg detection, AUVs for plankton surveys that also capture seafloor detail. Perfectly legal if you say science, strategically valuable if you need maritime domain awareness. Everything changes when negotiating leverage migrates from claims to access. The 7 historic claimants and the non-claimants alike need logistics: fuel, pilots, repair, SAR, and data. If you control the southern staging chain, Ushuaia, Punta Arenas, Magellan Beagle corridors, and you own the best forecast model and seabed charts, you hold the pen on what safe and environmentally responsible looks like in practice. That pen writes tomorrow's permit conditions and today's insurance discounts. You're probably wondering how 2048 actually plays out. There are 3 plausible paths. 1, status quo extended. Parties affirm the mining ban, maybe tighten environmental audits, and reward data transparency. 2, managed flex. No mining, but expanded scientific drilling, deeper geophysical surveys, and more permanent infrastructure to support safety, locking in logistics hierarchies. 3, contested review. A minority pushes to consider resource regimes, not to mine immediately, but to define a legal framework, royalties, environmental thresholds, and compliance tech years in advance. In each path, those who control access and information speak loudest. Soft violations don't look like oil rigs, they look like timelines sliding. Seasonal operations turn near permanent with winter hardening upgrades. Scientific cargo flights normalize year-round logistics. Temporary field camps sprout fiber uplinks and power modules. No one crosses the letter of the law, they expand the envelope until practice becomes precedent. The treaty isn't broken, it's stretched by capability. Now, why build leverage today? Because negotiating power is cumulative. Countries with reliable ice-capable fleets, proven SAR records, audited environmental compliance, and harmonized port procedures will present themselves as responsible stewards. They'll argue that their corridor reduces risk and emissions by shortening voyages and improving predictability. Insurers will nod. Shippers will follow. And in a review conference, those usage patterns weigh more than abstract claims. Remember the data pipe's open loop? This is where it snaps shut. Oceanographic data yields routing advantage and fuel savings. Seabed mapping informs safe lanes and future cable corridors. Acoustic and satellite networks feed proprietary forecasts that insurers trust. Whoever runs that stack can offer verified low-risk passage credentials. That credential becomes a bargaining chip in 2048 discussions. We keep the South safe. We deserve a say. There's a final twist. Even if the ban holds, the South becomes economically central through services, not extraction. Ports earn invisible tolls. Insurers price corridors they can see. Research vessels and auxiliaries normalize presence. And the country that built the southern logistics chain early, financing ports, seeding data, training talent, walks into 2048 not with a demand, but with receipts, usage, safety, stewardship, and a network others already rely on. Data is dominion, climate mapping, and early warning. Here's the leverage nobody sees on AIS. The dashboards. Ships don't sail on water first, they sail on models. And in the South, whoever owns the models owns the corridor. Start with climate and routing. Oceanographic data, temperature, salinity, currents, wave spectra, translates directly into fuel burn and arrival certainty. A 1-knot current misread over 1,500 nautical miles can add a day. That day becomes overtime, missed berths, and insurance penalties. Now, if your private network of buoys and satellite tasking feeds a nowcast that spots a corridor of lower head seas 18 hours earlier than public feeds, you shave bunker costs and hit your pilot window. That's not trivia, that's money. Most people think weather is a commodity. It isn't here. The Drake's microclimates form and die fast. Public models update on cycles and grid scales that smooth out the spikes. Private stacks ingest higher frequency buoy pings, scatterometer winds, SAR imagery for wave fields, and vessel sensor backhauls in near real time. Then they push ship-specific guidance based on hull form, loading, and RPM curves. 2 ships in the same sea can sail 2 different oceans if one has bespoke routing. Now the seabed. The approaches to Magellan and Beagle aren't the Drake's abyss. They're narrow, shallow, and constantly reworked by currents. High-resolution bathymetry, multi-beam surveys updated quarterly instead of generationally, cuts groundings and lets pilots thread tighter windows with confidence. Add sediment transport models and you know where shoaling will appear after a storm before the pilot even boards. That's minutes saved per vessel, multiplied by hundreds of calls. Acoustics are the early warning layer. Icebergs don't always show cleanly on satellite, especially under cloud or when wave fields mask edges. Passive arrays and smart drifters hear keel flex and brash swarms before they surface on imagery. Tie acoustic hits to drift models, and you draw moving exclusion zones with time stamps. That allows convoys to pre-plan speed changes instead of slamming brakes when the lookout yells, "Ice." Less slamming means fewer failures in rough seas. Bearings, seals, electronics. Cables matter too. Subsea fiber around the southern cone and potential cross-southern links carry more than Netflix. They carry the data that renders the corridor visible. Low-latency uplinks from ground stations in Patagonia and Tierra del Fuego keep the model loop tight. Observe, compute, push guidance, observe again. If your cable maps and bathymetry also inform future routes for additional fiber, you own tomorrow's backbone planning. That's leverage far beyond ports. Here's where dashboards become gatekeepers. Insurers don't just price risk, they consume data. If a port-backed platform streams verified buoy readings, pilot availability, tug readiness, SAR coverage, and weather windows, underwriters can bind policies with conditional discounts tied to those inputs. Ships that sail inside the dashboard pay less. Ships that refuse the sensors pay more or get delayed by enhanced inspections. That's soft power hidden in a GUI. Satellite tasking is a quiet auction. Priority access to radar satellites over Cape Horn during storm season means your model sees through weather while others guess. Pair that with GNSS augmentation from local stations and you sharpen position fixes during heave and spray, keeping dynamic positioning and channel tracking stable. Research labels this scientific support. Operators call it not hitting things. Let me show you the feedback loop. More ships use the corridor's services, which throws off more sensor data, which improves models, which tightens guidance, which reduces incidents and premiums, which attracts more ships. That flywheel compounds until the platform becomes the default risk language for the South. At that point, control isn't a law. It's the API everyone depends on. Micro story. Last month, a bulk carrier faced a 36-hour squeeze between 2 lows. Public models said marginal. The private dashboard saw a narrow fetch shift and advised 0.8 knots slower for 12 hours than a sprint. They hit Punta Arenas with 2 hours to spare, caught their pilot, and refueled in the green lane. Another carrier, same class, trusted generic routing, arrived 6 hours late, missed the pilot cycle, and lost a full day. Same sea, different data. Ownership of sensors isn't enough. Governance matters. Ports that set data standards, calibration, timestamp integrity, audit trails earn insurer trust. Open enough to verify, closed enough to sell advantage. That balance turns information into infrastructure. Everything changes when ports run digital twins. Berth occupancy, gangway conflicts, bunker barge ETAs, pilot rest thresholds, tug assignments, crane maintenance, and weather overlays stack in one view. Dispatchers simulate a vessel's call before it happens, pre-solving the bottlenecks. Ships see their turn in a transparent sequence. Friction drops. The invisible toll becomes a visible service with a price. Final piece, early warning is also narrative control. The entity that publishes authoritative storm alerts, iceberg lanes, and SAR advisories becomes the South's trusted voice. Media quote them. Regulators defer to them. In a crisis, their map is the map. And when that crisis ends, the MOUs get signed with the people whose dashboard kept everyone afloat. Militarization without troops, lawfare and presence. Okay, so here's the thing. Antarctica bans military bases, but it doesn't ban presence. And in maritime chess, presence wins without firing a shot. The toolkit is law, logistics, and rescue. Start with the treaty box we're playing in. You can't deploy combat forces, but you can sail research vessels, auxiliaries, and icebreakers. You can patrol for safety, run joint search and rescue drills, conduct environmental response exercises, and do port state inspections. On paper, it's stewardship. In practice, it's selective friction and preferred flow. Let me show you how lawfare becomes a throttle. Port state control can inspect any vessel for safety and environmental compliance. If your ship's documentation is perfectly fine but not pre-shared into the port's digital twin, expect a standard inspection that takes 6 to 12 hours, long enough to miss the pilot window and lose a day. Partner vessels that upload emissions logs, ballast water records, crew certs, and hull sensor history in advance. Green lane. Same law, different tempo. Now patrols. A research vessel with a Coast Guard liaison aboard can monitor sensitive areas near the passage. Framed as fisheries protection or iceberg reporting, it's a moving checkpoint. Ships are hailed for safety advisories, routing recommendations, or voluntary boarding. Nothing compulsory until insurers start treating declined advisory as a risk flag. Suddenly, voluntary becomes the price of coverage. Icebreakers are the big lever. You don't need to escort every ship. You announce an environmental monitoring convoy during shoulder season and invite traffic to sail near it for safety. The convoy sets the timetable, pilots align, bunkering is staged, SAR assets preposition, and whoever organized it just set the passage rhythm for a week. Treaty compliant, schedule defining. Joint exercises are the narrative engine. Chilean or Argentine authorities announce a SAR drill with foreign research ships, maybe an auxiliary from a friendly navy. Scenarios: mass casualty due to rogue waves, fuel spill containment, medevac coordination in high seas. Radios get standardized. Call signs are practiced. Interoperability becomes habit. When a real storm hits, the ships that drilled together coordinate faster. Ports remember who made their job easier. Here's where dual-use platforms blur lines. Hydrographic survey ships charting approaches also map seabed cables and anchor hazards. Public good on the surface, maritime domain awareness underneath. Oceanographic buoys report wave spectra and currents and feed positional intelligence for routing, inspections, and convoy timing. Satellite ground stations track weather passes and sharpen AIS and comms coverage over the South. It's all science. It's also traffic control. Legal choke points multiply in paper cuts. Safety advisories tied to forecast thresholds. Mandatory pilotage during defined wind states. Tug escort rules beyond certain drafts. Environmental contingency plans that require prearranged waste reception or spill kits on board. None of these scream control. Together, they create a compliance maze with a fast lane for the plugged in and a slow lane for everyone else. Insurance finishes the job. Underwriters coordinate with port dashboards. Discounts apply if you accept recommended time of arrival, sail inside the buoy network's envelope, and agree to boardings when flagged for verification. Decline and your deductible jumps. Have a minor incident outside the advisory. Expect punitive premiums. No guns, no troops, just actuarial pressure steering ships. Micro story: a tanker faces a shoulder season crossing. The port dashboard offers a convoy-linked arrival slot if the master accepts a pre-sale inspection and installs a temporary sensor pack. The carrier hesitates, extra steps, extra eyes. Their insurer emails, take the slot and your war risk surcharge elsewhere drops by a third this voyage. They take it. Lawfare by spreadsheet. Now intelligence without uniforms. Research vessels tow acoustic arrays to study whales, but those arrays also characterize ambient noise for submarine detection in future contingencies. High-frequency coastal radars to study waves provide real-time surface tracks. None of this violates the treaty. All of it builds a layered picture of the passage. If a crisis breaks out far away, that picture becomes leverage at the speed of a phone call. You probably think this tilts only one way. Not quite. Western partners can play the same game, run allied SAR compacts, embed insurance auditors inside port twins, and publish open environmental standards that anchor enforcement. The difference is tempo and funding. Whoever seeds assets sooner, trains crews together more often, and ties insurers into the loop tighter normalizes their procedures as the way things are done. Selective assistance is the sharp edge. In a surge after a storm, towage and repair crews triage. The ships that pre-booked, shared data, and accepted advisory routes get first response. Others wait. No one denies help, they sequence it. Headlines read safety. Balance sheets read control. So the South militarizes by paperwork and presence. Patrols that brief, inspections that nudge, convoys that schedule, dashboards that decide, and insurers that enforce. It's not a fortress, it's a habit. And right now, two local gatekeepers are picking partners, one leaning in, one hedging, and both discovering that rescue can set the rules. Chile versus Argentina, the bargain and the bet. Now we zoom into the human layer of the corridor. Two neighbors staring at the same map and making different bets. Chile and Argentina both want the southern logistics crown, but their leverage stacks aren't identical, and neither are their dance partners. Chile's pitch is reliability. Punta Arenas and the Magellan system sell professionalism, standardized procedures, and a coast guard with muscle memory. The Maritime Authority has long-run SAR coverage like a utility, predictable, audited, and interoperable with allies. That translates into insurer confidence and green lane behavior. Politically, Chile frames upgrades as sovereign stewardship. Environment first, safety first, services on time. It's a quiet flex, less flag-waving, more dashboard. Argentina's pitch is scale and story. Ushuaia is the biggest Antarctic tourism gateway on Earth, with pier length, throughput, and crews trained to turn ships fast when the weather says go. The narrative is sovereignty forward, Malvina's memory, Antarctic heritage, and the idea that the Beagle Channel is a national artery. That politics cuts both ways. It can rally investment and labor, but it also complicates foreign capital when strategic becomes a domestic trigger word. Here's where foreign money tests both. Chinese-linked financing tends to move faster and bundle perks, priority berths, guaranteed bunkering windows, and data co-ownership. Western capital shows up as credit guarantees, tug and yard modernizations, and digital twins tied to open standards, but often with slower disbursement and governance strings. Chile leans toward Western standards without slamming the door on commercial Chinese gear in civilian wrappers. Argentina entertains both, publicly hedging, privately weighing who can actually wire funds and deliver cranes. Pilotage and labor are the street-level realities. Chile's pilot corps is tightly regulated, training pathways are structured, dispatch discipline is strong. Argentina's pilots are highly capable but operate amid more frequent labor negotiations and political wins. A carrier staring at a 6-hour weather window reads those signals. The port that can certify pilot availability to the minute wins the week. Environmental politics shape the runway. Chile's regulators push cold ironing, emissions reporting, and spill readiness with clear templates, painful at first, then predictable. Argentina enforces too, but the cadence can be choppier. Ministerial shifts, provincial pulls, and emergency decrees that move thresholds. If you're an insurer, predictability beats philosophy every time. The port that publishes thresholds enforces them consistently, and pre-clears compliant ships will see premiums slide. Debt risk colors every term sheet. Argentina's history with sovereign restructurings forces higher risk pricing. Lenders demand covenants that can spill into operations. Preferred users, escrowed fuel, step-in rights for equipment. Chile's steadier credit lets it negotiate for control. Data stays local, standards stay open, and service-level agreements flow through the port authority. That means Chile can sell certainty as a national product, while Argentina may sell certainty as a financed bundle. So do they compete or coordinate? Both deliberately. The smart play is 2 doors, 1 corridor. Harmonize pilot standards, mirror inspection checklists, align SAR call trees, and publish a single southern arrival protocol that either port can serve. That lets insurers write one rulebook and gives carriers route choice without compliance whiplash. Chile would anchor the playbook. Argentina would amplify capacity. Together, they market the South as a system, not a gamble. But politics will force differentiation. Ushuaia will push a polar superhub vision, expanded berths, cruise plus cargo hybridization, and a logistics park pitched as Antarctica's backstage. Punta Arenas will emphasize Magellan mastery, redundant tugs, barge choreography, yard uptime, and data integrity. If China co-finances Ushuaia storage and a ground station, expect Western funding to accelerate tug and SAR packages in Chile, plus buoy arrays and an open standards digital twin insurers can audit. Domestic constituencies matter. In Argentina, unions and provincial leaders will demand local control clauses, job guarantees, and visibility on who gets priority. In Chile, environmental groups will insist on emissions cuts, spill gear, and limits on heavy traffic in sensitive channels. Neither is a deal-breaker if ports bake requirements into SLAs. Green lanes for clean ships, priority docking for pre-cleared crews, and transparent pilot rosters tied to weather windows. Scenario time. Align. They standardize procedures, co-sponsor SAR drills, and share data to one insurer-facing dashboard. Hedge. Each signs different capital. Ushuaia tilts Chinese on storage and comms. Punta Arenas tilts Western on tugs and data. Auction. Both invite carriers and insurers to bid for guaranteed wind. Whoever pays gets the sequence. The most likely path. Hedge with harmonization. Enough alignment to calm underwriters, enough difference to keep leverage in negotiations. Who gets what in that mix? Chile earns the reputation premium, lower friction, stable rules, smoother inspections. Argentina earns the scale premium, more hulls, faster turns, bigger political narrative. Both collect service rent when the window tightens, and both will discover the same truth. The partner who funds your cranes will try to fund your dashboards next. That's where the bet becomes a bargain or a bind. The Western counter, ICE, alliances, and insurance. Now the West wakes up, not with a speech, with steel, standards, and spreadsheets. The play isn't to own the Drake, it's to make the Southern Corridor safer, cheaper, and more transparent under an allied umbrella so carriers default there without thinking. This also taps a proven psychological lever, risk aversion. If the allied lane feels obviously safer and more auditable, managers will pick it even when costs are close. Start with ICE. The United States, Australia, the UK, and partners are accelerating polar-capable tonnage. New medium icebreakers, research auxiliary hulls with reinforced bows, and chartered commercial ice-classed vessels that can be surged south for convoy leadership and SAR. You'll see multi-mission ships, hydrographic kit 1 week, oil spill booms the next, flagged civilian, crewed mixed, and embedded with Coast Guard detachments. The point isn't muscle, it's margin. More hulls in shoulder seasons widen the workable window and break the monopoly of any one rescue platform. But here's where it gets interesting. They're pairing hardware with basing rights. Allied access agreements quietly stitch together a ladder of fuel, spares, and hangars from Stanley in the Falklands to Punta Arenas partnerships to Montevideo contingencies. Think prepositioned shelter kits, diesel and VLSFO caches, portable PNT beacons, and containerized workshops that can drop on a pier for a month, then vanish. Flex logistics, not permanent footprints. Everything changes when alliances move beyond navies. Port authorities, classification societies, and pilot associations are building an open Southern standard. Mirror pilotage curricula, common bridge resource training for Magellan Beagle, shared incident reporting, and mutual recognition of electronic pilotage services. If a master trains in Valparaiso's simulator, Ushuaia honors it. If a tug drills with Chilean command, the insurer sees it in the same registry. One skill stack, 2 doors, fewer surprises. Now the insurance lever. London and Nordic syndicates love verifiable risk controls. They're crafting route-linked products. Shave premiums 10-20% if a vessel files a Southern Passage plan tied to audited SAR coverage, accepts certified pilotage, sails within a published weather window, and calls only at standard-compliant ports. Deductibles drop further if ships stream sensor data to the Alliance dashboard. The carrot is huge. On a long haul, insurance can swing the P and L more than bunker prices. Prepositioned logistics complete the triangle. Allied consortia are funding fuel and repair nodes with redundancy. 2 bunker barges on independent maintenance cycles. Hot swap pump and seal kits for the most common engine models. Electronic spares for navigation suites that fail in spray and cold. Even simple things, heated hose reels, de-ice stations, gasket libraries, turn weather delays into maintenance sprints. If a liner can predict a 6-hour call with 90% confidence, Schedules stabilize enough to rewrite rotations. You probably think this is all ships and spreadsheets. The narrative matters, too. An information campaign frames the Allied standard as environmental stewardship. Stricter ballast controls, verified low-sulfur fuel, cold ironing where feasible, spill-ready booms staged within set radii, and real-time emissions reporting from stacked sensors. NGOs and reinsurers nod. Retailers chasing Scope 3 cuts lean in. Suddenly, buyers ask carriers, "Are you on the certified southern lane?" That's soft market pressure doing policy work. Data parity is the next hill. To counter proprietary stacks, the West is funding an open sensor mesh. HF radars along key approaches, unclassified multi-beam bathymetry refreshed quarterly, iceberg drift models, and a common nowcast fed by buoys and satellite SAR with reserved tasking windows. The output is a public baseline model, good enough for safety, wrapped with optional premium layers from private weather firms. Insurers require the baseline, carriers can pay up for the edge. Either way, the advantage isn't locked to one financier. Allied drills make it stick. Annual Blue Horn exercises simulate mass casualty SAR, disabled ship towage in heavy seas, and multi-ship bunkering under time pressure. Research vessels, coast guards, and contracted tugs practice the exact calls, handoffs, and message formats they'll use on a bad Tuesday in January. After-action reports pipe straight into the standard, so the checklist a master sees next month reflects last month's near miss. That loop builds trust, and trust drives adoption. Lawfare but open book. Instead of opaque preclearance, ports publish a Southern Safe Passage code. Documentation sets inspection time guarantees, pilot dispatch SLAs, tug escort thresholds, and storm cutoffs by class. Green lane ships are public, so shippers can pick compliance. If a carrier opts out, fine, higher premiums, longer inspections, fewer guaranteed windows. It's pressure without politics. What about capital? Export credit agencies and multilateral banks put skin in the game. Tug modernization loans with climate strings, credit guarantees for fuel storage with audited inventory systems, grants for digital twins that insurers can query, and financing for pilot academies. The deal terms embed open data and non-discrimination clauses, so no single fleet gets quiet precedence. Micro story, a reefer line serving South Atlantic fisheries booked the Allied package, certified pilots, open model routing, pre-cleared bunkers. They cut arrival variance by 26% across one season and negotiated a multi-year premium step-down with a London syndicate. Their competitor kept ad hoc practices, missed 2 pilot windows, and lost a supermarket contract over shelf life slippage. Same storms, different scaffolding. There's also a deterrent baked in. When Allied auxiliaries and research ships become routine off Cape Horn, any exclusive convoy claim looks self-serving. If a crisis flares elsewhere, the same assets can surge for evacuation or towage without tripping treaty wires. Presence normalized equals leverage banked. Final piece, retailers and cargo owners. Big Box and Pharma are telling carriers they'll pay modest premiums for certified southern slots during high-risk Red Sea periods if variance drops. That demand signal funds the standard faster than any communique. When cargo pulls, ships follow. When ships follow, insurers formalize. And once the insurance language settles, the Southern Corridor isn't a geopolitical bet, it's a compliance product. So the Western counter isn't a flag on the map. It's a lane you can trust, ice-capable helpers, interoperable rules, audited data, and insurance that rewards good behavior. Make that the easiest choice on a bad day, and the corridor chooses itself. The shipping math, when the numbers flip. All right, let's put real numbers to this. Route choice isn't vibes. It's a spreadsheet where day rates, bunker prices, delay penalties, insurance, and carbon costs fight to a draw. When one line moves, the whole decision flips. Start with day rates. A 14,000 TEU liner at $45,000 a day, burning roughly 120 tons day at eco speed. At $600 ton VLSFO, every extra day is $60,000.72, in fuel plus $45,000 in time. Call it $105,000.117, daily all in before port costs. 10 additional days around the Cape, you're staring at $1 million plus in incremental cost. That's why any corridor that reliably removes even 3 days wins fast. Now add delay penalties and schedule integrity. Liners live on fixed windows. Miss a berth and you cascade. Idle cranes, storage fees, lost transshipment connections, and compensation to BCOs under service agreements. Conservatively, a slipped call can add $200,000 when you account for knock-on overtime and port reshuffles. A southern hop that keeps a schedule intact through a bad Red Sea week can be worth more than the fuel you burn doing it. Bulkers and tankers do different math. A capesize at $35,000.35 a day with bunker burn closer to 50-70 tons day has more route flexibility, fewer port calls, and charterers willing to accept variance if the rate compensates. But charter parties are rewriting that flexibility. New clauses define security advisories and meteorological thresholds as triggers to deviate south without breach. If war risk adds $300,000.600 per Suez voyage and pirates add escort costs, a Cape or Southern route becomes the cheap option on a risk-adjusted basis. Insurance is the quiet hinge. Underwriters are offering conditional discounts tied to audited SAR coverage, certified pilots, and sailing inside published weather windows. If the Southern Corridor knocks 15–25% off hull and war risk premiums compared to Red Sea peaks, you might save $150,000 on a long haul that month. Stack that with fewer scheduled penalties, and the South isn't a stunt. It's a hedge that pays for itself a few voyages each season. Here, where ETS and carbon accounting shove the model. For U-bound cargo, every extra day at sea piles on Kotwi that's now priced. If your ship emits, say, 60 tons of CO 2-day at eco speed, and allowances sit north of €60 per ton, 10 Cape days means €36,000 in carbon alone before you count impending fuel standards. A southern path that cuts distance against a detour, or lets you run at steadier, lower RPM with forecast certainty, can trim both emissions and allowances. When CFOs add a carbon column, predictability with fewer days wins. Most people think liners switch last. True, because they're schedule slaves. But segmentation matters. Energy tankers with seasonal demand and arbitrage windows will trial the South first, especially when freight economics reward earlier arrival into South Atlantic or West Coast South America. Bulkers follow where cargo is south-south or where fixtures include flexible lake-in and bonus clauses for early arrival. Liners come when the corridor guarantees pilots, tugs, and bunkers on a timetable their network ops can trust. Everything changes when bunker prices swing. At $400 ton, distance hurts less. At $800 ton, every mile screams. That's why private routing that finds a lower headsea corridor and cuts one knot of effective resistance saves real money. The South's promise isn't flat seas. It's better forecasts that let you optimize RPM, avoid slamming, and hold schedules. Lower variance equals lower average fuel per delivered box when you dodge reaccelerations and idle time at anchor. Charter party rewrites are the structural tell. Owners are inserting route flexibility clauses and defining good weather criteria by third-party models tied to the Southern dashboard. Masters get authority to choose the corridor if those models flag thresholds. Charterers accept because insurers price to the model. The contract language codifies what used to be captain's luck. Force majeure is evolving too. Security advisories that shut Red Sea lanes aren't hypothetical anymore. If a clause triggers, a southward deviation becomes compliant, not contentious. Freight gets delivered, penalties shrink, and the argument moves from "why did you go there?" to "did you sail inside the certified window?" Carbon intensifies fleet strategy. Newbuild orders with reinforced bows and better seakeeping in heavy head seas aren't ice ships. They're southern optimized. Hull coatings and prop upgrades that shine in rougher water become ROI positive if you sail the corridor 10 times a year. If an owner can market a vessel as Southern compliant to an alliance standard, day rates nudge up in peak season. A 5% premium on $45,000 day over 120 days is $270,000, enough to fund the upgrades and then some. Micro story, a grain charterer fixed a Panamax with a Southern option clause. A Red Sea spike hit mid-voyage. The master consulted the dashboard, slipped through a 7-day window, hit the Magellan pilot on time, and made the discharge window in Brazil. Charterer paid a modest route premium but avoided a $400,000 late delivery penalty and secured next season business with the buyer. Spreadsheet win. So when do the numbers flip broadly? 3 conditions align. Sustained elevated risk pricing in the Red Sea, intermittent Panama constraints that threaten queues, and a southern corridor that can publish time guarantees. Pilot dispatch SLAs, bunkering slots, SAR coverage, and weather windows with verified accuracy. Add ETS pressure on inefficient detours and insurers rewarding certified routes, and the hedge becomes habit. The lesson is Drake every day. Its options change prices. As soon as the South becomes an institutional option, written into contracts, modeled by insurers and serviced by synchronized ports, the global network reprices. Some voyages move permanently, others move seasonally. But once the math proves out a few cycles, the corridor stops being a contingency and starts being a line on the schedule. Historical pattern, chokepoints that change the world. If you want to know where this goes, look backward. Chokepoints don't announce themselves. They accumulate leverage until a crisis forces everyone to admit who's been holding the valve. Start with Suez 1956. Most people remember tanks and headlines. The operational truth was time. When Nasser nationalized the canal, Britain, France, and Israel tried to reverse the move, but the real power play was the canal's closure. Every ship forced around the Cape paid a hidden tax. Extra days, extra fuel, missed connections. Insurance tightened, freight surged, and suddenly the so-called middle powers were begging for dollars and diplomatic air. The United States and the Soviet Union didn't need to fire many shots to influence the outcome. They leveraged the economic pain radiating from a blocked waterway. Lesson 1. Shut a valve, rewrite alliances. Now look at Suez again, 1967-1975. 8 years of closure during the Arab-Israeli conflict forced global carriers to normalize the long way. Did trade stop? No, it resegmented. Tanker designs shifted, fleet mixes adapted, and whole supply chains rerouted around Africa. When Suez reopened, it didn't erase the new habits, it competed with them. That's critical. Once a route proves viable, it never fully disappears. It remains a credible threat that disciplines the toll setter. Translate that to the South. If the Drake corridor matures even seasonally, it becomes permanent leverage on Suez pricing and risk premia. Hormuz is the quiet opposite, rarely closed, always priced. About a fifth of the world's oil has threaded that needle in recent decades. Nobody owns the strait outright, but presence sets the rules. Patrols, partners, and pre-positioned rescue keep rates tolerable. When mines or missiles raise risk, insurers reprice overnight. Naval escorts appear, compliance tightens, and traffic flows, barely under an umbrella of procedures. It's militarization without conquest, a template we just outlined for the southern lane. Lesson 2. Continuous presence creates a toll in all but name. Malacca tells the partner story. The strait sits in Indonesia's and Malaysia's waters, with Singapore as the hyper-efficient service hub. No global navy seized it. Instead, tri-state patrols, Singapore's port mastery, and an intelligence mesh brought piracy down and predictability up. Carriers didn't flock there because it was shortest. They stayed because service friction collapsed. That's what Chile and Argentina can copy. 2 doors, 1 standard, 1 dashboard. Now rewind further to sails and storms. Before canals, the Cape routes and the Strait of Magellan were the arteries of empires. Portugal and then the Dutch knitted a logistics network, repair yards, victualling stops, monopolies by charter, not by wall. Britain refined the model with coal stations and hydrographic charts. They didn't build canals everywhere, they built predictable stops and published rules. Where did weather beat walls? Off Cape Horn often. Captains avoided the Drake because unpredictability killed schedules and ships. But when they had to go, success hinged on charts, pilots, and timing. Exactly the levers we're seeing re-engineered now with satellites and SAR. A quick receipt from 1869. The day Suez opened, Cape Town's business model got a death notice. But South Africa didn't vanish. It pivoted to coal and cable stations supporting the residual flow and naval presence. That's a pattern. When a choke point rises, the bypass nodes either specialize or decline. Punta Arenas and Ushuaia are staring at that fork. The choice is to standardize and scale services so the corridor depends on them, or watch a different node write the rules. Most people think control is geographic. History says it's layered. Legal first, who can inspect, detain, and set conditions. Local second, pilots, tugs, repair, and rescue dictate tempo. Logistical third, fuel, spares, and berths decide who moves on time. Informational last, charts and forecasts decide who dares. Stack those layers and a canal becomes optional. A corridor becomes inevitable. That's why the power we're tracing doesn't look like a fort, it looks like a checklist. There's also the therefore move after every disruption. Suez closed, therefore VLCCs got bigger and capable of longer hauls. Hormuz spiked, therefore floating storage and alternative pipelines gained relevance. Malacca worried planners, therefore the Lombok, Makassar route and land bridges in Thailand and Malaysia got studied and in parts built. Apply the pattern south. Red Sea risk endures, therefore an alliance audited southern lane plus Cape redundancy gets funded. Panama drought returns, therefore South American coast-to-coast triangle loops pick up volume and institutionalize pilots and bunkers in the far south. The contrarian case is storms make this moot. History answers with technology and procedure. The Horn didn't get calmer, ships got stronger, charts got better, forecasts got useful, and services improved. Uncertainty shrank enough for commerce to price it. That's the bar the South has to clear, not flat seas, just repeatable windows plus credible rescue. Once met, markets do the rest. Here's the payoff you'll want to remember. Every chokepoint that changed the world did so by converting time into power. Suez sold days saved. Hormuz sells days not lost. Malacca sells minutes shaved through frictionless service. The southern lane will sell variants reduced, fewer ugly surprises in a network now plagued by them. When a route can guarantee less variance, capital flows that way, treaties bend toward it, and the player underwriting that guarantee gets the leverage. And yes, there's a modern Shackleton moment coming, a risky, successful southern crossing under pressure that proves the corridor's maturity. When that happens, the map won't change. The math will. The first crisis scenario, 72 hours that decide ownership. It starts with a forecast no one likes. A fast-forming low deepens off Cape Horn, while satellite radar spots an iceberg field shearing off a southern drift line. It's peak window, late austral summer, and traffic is stacked. A mixed convoy converges on the corridor. A 14,000 TEU liner short on buffer, a products tanker racing a delivery clause, two bulkers carrying grain and ore, and a research auxiliary ship acting as unofficial shepherd. Flags span Asia, Europe, and South America. Everyone needs the same thing, a pilot slot and a safe hop to fuel. 12 hours in, the storm outruns the public model. Wave fields steepen. The iceberg cluster starts drifting across the convoy's intended track. The research ship calls a safety advisory on open channels, relaying private nowcast data and acoustic hits from drifters. Two captains heed it and reduce speed to resequence. The liner hesitates, schedule is money, and presses on, angling for the earlier pilot window. But here's where it gets interesting. Insurers watching the port dashboard flip their status lights. Policies tied to certified advisories trigger a conditional surcharge for ships outside the recommended envelope. The liner's risk desk pings the bridge. Accept the advisory or eat a premium hike and potential deductible kicker if conditions worsen. The master calls it. Slow 0.7 knots, hold the advisory track, request a revised ETA. As the sea builds, a bulker takes green water over the bow and loses a radar array. No distress, but degraded sensors and crew fatigue create a problem. The convoy shifts toward the monitoring convoy centered on the auxiliary. Chilean SAR assets reposition along a predicted rescue corridor. Argentina's prefectura launches a patrol helicopter to extend eyes. On paper, it's joint safety coverage. In practice, it's choreography, who talks to whom on what channel in what format. 24 hours in, the iceberg field's leading edge clips the original corridor. The research ship's acoustic drifters flag higher brash density. The convoy slides south by east, losing time but buying margin. The tanker, pressed by a delivery clause, asks for priority sequencing on the other side, pre-cleared bunkering, tug escort, and first-up pilot once conditions ease. The port twin shows green for vessels inside advisory compliance. Outside compliance, enhanced inspection likely. Everyone understands that means a missed window. The social proof effect kicks in. Masters follow the advisory when they see peers getting rewarded for it in real time. At hour 36, the narrative fight begins. A non-compliant operator tweets about gatekeeping and soft blockades as their ETA slips. News wires pick it up. Are Southern authorities privileging partner fleets? Chile issues a calm statement. Safety advisory routing reduces risk and environmental impact. Compliant vessels receive standard time guarantees. Argentina echoes. Port state control ensures safety for all. Inspection cadence is routine. The research ship posts wave spectra and iceberg drift visualizations. Data beats adjectives. The storm peaks. The auxiliary declares a temporary rescue posture and requests nearby vessels hold advisory spacing for potential towage. No one is compelled. Everyone complies because insurers have wired discounts to that behavior. A bulk carrier reports a steering alarm, manageable but borderline in 9-meter seas. A tug readiness alert pings from Punta Arenas. Crews on standby, tow lines pre-staged, repair teams pre-tasked based on class-specific failure risk. Minutes matter now. Hour 48. A narrow weather window opens on the port side of the system. The dashboard pushes a synchronized sprint. RPM profiles by vessel, staggered pilot arrival slots, bunker barge ETAs sequence to minimize idle. The liner that slowed early slides into the first pilot ladder, green lane for documentation, and a 2-hour bunker turnaround. The tanker follows with tug escort, pre-cleared environmental paperwork, and a spill response kit staged as optics and prudence. Meanwhile, the non-compliant ship arrives late into a saturated queue. Port state control boards for a routine check, emissions logs, ballast water, crew certs, bridge equipment status. Nothing punitive, nothing theatrical, just thorough. By the time the inspection clears, the pilot cycle has rolled. They anchor fuming. Market lesson delivered, sail inside the envelope or pay in time. Hour 60, media coverage flips tone. Headlines read, coordinated advisory averts Drake incident amid peak traffic. Insurers brief clients. Compliant ships cut effective risk exposure by double digits and receive time guarantees. A few pundits yell about algorithmic tolls, but cargo owners see delivery confirmations and meet retail windows. In boardrooms, the language shifts from experiment to standard operating procedure. Now the backroom deals. After the scare, port authorities assemble the players, coast guards, pilots, insurers, carriers on a secure call. They propose an MOU that formalizes what just happened. Advisory routing triggers, inspection time guarantees for pre-shared data, convoy protocols for shoulder seasons, and a real-time incident log all parties can query. Chile offers to publish SAR readiness metrics. Argentina proposes mirrored pilot standards and a joint arrival protocol. Insurers sweeten the pot with published premium bands tied to compliance. Who signs? The carriers who made their windows sign first. The tanker's owner commits volume in exchange for seasonal priority bunkering and tug availability SLAs. The liner's alliance accepts digital pre-clearance requirements for green lanes. Even a skeptical bulker outfit signs a limited version. Advisory compliance during defined thresholds only, but enough to get inspection guarantees. The outlier operator holds out and finds charterers asking pointed questions about variance risk. Within 72 hours, a storm turned into governance. Not a treaty, not a canal, an operating system. The entity with the best data, the fastest SAR choreography, the tightest port twin, and the clearest insurer hooks just proved it can run the corridor under stress. That's ownership without title. And once the MOUs harden into practice, the next storm won't be a test. It'll be a demonstration. The hidden winners, who profits from a southern shift. Okay, so who actually cashes the checks if the South becomes a real option? Start with the obvious name on everyone's board, China. Not because it slaps flags on piers, but because it rents the decision layer. Priority berths embedded in financing covenants, bunkering SLAs that trigger during congestion, and data rights tied to research, infrastructure turn time into revenue. Every vessel that sails inside their model feeds the loop, better forecasts, tighter routing, lower variance. So Chinese-linked platforms can sell certainty at a premium. Add treaty positioning. Logistics receipts before 2048 convert into negotiating leverage later. Even if minerals stay off-limits, cable routes, seabed surveys, and acoustic networks are monetizable right now as services and insights. Chile and Argentina aren't just spectators. They monetize invisible tolls. Pilotage sold in guaranteed windows, bunkers with time penalties for late delivery, 24/7 repair rosters, and SAR-backed insurance discounts all spin revenue without a formal canal fee. Jobs surge in practical trades: pilots, tug crews, barge operators, diesel techs, hydraulics specialists, electronics repair, plus data-adjacent roles in port twins and forecast centers. Their upside scales with predictability. The port that publishes dispatch SLAs, inspection time guarantees, and fuel allocation rules earns a reputation premium. Underwriters reward it, ships queue for it. That's not charity, that's yield. Insurers and reinsurers quietly win twice. First, they price volatility in the Red Sea and monetize the shift with war risk and deviation riders. Then they craft Southern compliance products that shave premiums for verified behavior. The magic is preferential data access. Dashboard streaming buoy readings, pilot availability, tug readiness, and SAR posture let them bind faster and price narrower. Actuarial edge turns into market share. A few syndicates will become the South's de facto risk referees, and collect recurring rents on every voyage that wants the green lane. Polar shipbuilders and retrofit yards are next. You don't need nuclear icebreakers. You need hulls optimized for heavy-head seas, de-icing systems, resilient electronics, and reinforced bows that reduce slamming. Orders move to yards that can certify Southern-compliant designs and turn retrofits in tight yardside windows, anti-roll fins tuned for long-period swells, prop upgrades for cavitation in rough water, and coatings that hold an abrasive spray. The yards that pre-stock class-approved kits near the Magellan system win recurring contracts every shoulder season. Weather and data firms, including a few you've never heard of, become platform landlords. They'll stitch satellite SAR tasking, scatterometer winds, high-frequency radar, acoustic drifters, and vessel sensor backhauls into proprietary nowcasts. Then they sell tiers, baseline safety to everyone, performance layers to preferred partners, and API access for insurers. The trick is governance, audit trails, calibration standards, and model explainers that regulators and underwriters trust. Get that right and you're not a vendor, you're infrastructure. Port tech stacks are a sleeper category. Digital twins that simulate a call before it happens, berth and tug planners that solve conflicts in advance, and documentation portals that pre-clear inspections turn chaos into throughput. The vendors who prove they can ingest real-time metocean feeds, pilot rosters, maintenance states, and insurer criteria without lag will lock in multi-year licenses. Edge compute near the straits, low-latency boxes crunching model updates and dispatch decisions, becomes a scarce asset class. Whoever runs those boxes with 5 nines uptime gets paid in both fees and bargaining chips. NGOs and environmental certifiers gain clout and budget. Sounds counterintuitive, but when insurers peg premium bands to verified emissions reporting, ballast protocols, and spill readiness, third-party auditors become market makers. Certifiers that can ride along the data stream, flag anomalies, and validate compliance in near real time earn a slice of every compliant voyage. That puts green pressure on laggards while funneling value to the watchdogs with the best telemetry. Stevedoring and yard equipment suppliers notch incremental wins. Heated hose reels, cold ironing units, electric tug conversions, low-temp hydraulics, and gasket libraries tailored to southern weather turn into line items on every upgrade plan. The suppliers that can lease gear with uptime guarantees, swappable units, spare parts cached local, earn annuities instead of one-off sales. Telecoms have a quiet boom. Subsea cable planners need fresh bathymetry and risk maps. Ground stations near Punta Arenas and Tierra del Fuego sell low-latency links that keep the model loop tight. Dedicated bandwidth for SAR and advisory channels becomes a regulated service with premium SLAs. The carrier that can ring-fence priority lanes for emergency traffic and prove it under audit gets both regulatory goodwill and a durable revenue stream. And then there's the disruptor nobody likes to mention, Russia. Not as a southern landlord, but as an arbitrager with icebreaker supremacy up north. The northern sea route remains a bargaining chip. When Russia offers seasonal transits with guaranteed escorts, it pressures southern pricing by offering an alternative for certain lanes. It can also rent experience, ice pilots, SAR protocols, ship hardening lessons, to partners playing in the south, including China, while competing beneath the surface. In any 2048 discourse, Moscow will point to Arctic precedent to argue for frameworks it can game. That's value extracted through posture, not ports. So the hidden winners are the ones selling time, visibility, and variance reduction. China monetizes the stack. Chile and Argentina monetize the services. Insurers monetize compliance. Yards, tech vendors, and telecoms monetize the machinery that keeps it all humming. And a northern actor leverages leverage. The canal isn't moving south. The toll is spread across dashboards, SLAs, and the people who answer the radio when the weather turns ugly. Russia's side door. Arctic leverage meets Antarctic ambition. You probably think the South is a China-West duel. There's a third player with a different lever, Russia. Up north, Moscow already runs a pay-to-play corridor, the Northern Sea Route, with the world's largest icebreaker fleet, mandatory pilotage, and convoy timetables. That experience is currency, and Russia spends it by trading procedure, pilots, and precedent for influence elsewhere. Here's what actually happens. When insurers price the Red Sea high and Panama wobbles, Russia quietly markets seasonal NSR slots to energy majors and bulkers, shaving distance on Asia. Europe runs during Arctic windows. That doesn't replace Suez, but it undercuts southern premiums just enough to force negotiations. Every time the NSR looks viable, the South must sweeten its package. Better SLAs, bigger discounts, tighter SAR choreography. Moscow doesn't need a southern port. It needs a bargaining chip that moves spreadsheets. Icebreakers are the loudest chip. Russia's nuclear fleet escorts, tows, and sets the tempo in whether few can work. That capability can be repackaged as consulting, ice pilot exchanges, hull hardening standards, convoy doctrine, and winter search and rescue playbooks. On paper, it's safety cooperation with China and selected South American agencies. In practice, it builds dependencies and seats Russia at technical tables that shape Southern procedures. Now, this is important because narratives travel with procedures. Russia's Arctic story is regulated access with sovereign oversight. Translate that south, and you get a push for formalized convoys, mandatory equipment lists, and fee-for-service rescue frameworks. Still treaty compliant, still wrapped in safety, but more centralized and more rentable. If Chile and Argentina resist, Moscow can amplify the responsibility, line through partners and insurers who like predictability, even when it's pricey. Energy makes the angle sharper. Russian cargoes already flex between basins. If NSR windows and southern certainty evolve together, Moscow can time deliveries with dual options. Arctic in summer shoulder, southern hedges when Red Sea risk spikes. That portfolio forces buyers and carriers to keep Russian procedures on their dashboards, embedding Arctic lessons across oceans. The more those lessons become best practice, the more Russia's voice counts in standards and premiums. Below the headline, dual use creeps in. Hydrography teams that mapped Kara and Laptev shoals offer seabed survey expertise for southern approaches. Environmental ice monitoring marries with acoustic methods honed near Murmansk. None of it violates the treaty. All of it adds Russian fingerprints to the data pipes we just said decide the corridor. A shared iceberg model here, a SAR interoperability drill there, and suddenly the South's advisory language sounds a lot like the North's. The 2048 clock gives Moscow a script, precedent up north, permission down south. Expect arguments that regulated, inspected, technology-rich access is safer than laissez-faire science logistics. Not a call to mine, Russia reads the room, but a call to codify frameworks early, audit rules, incident reporting, equipment baselines, and recognized service providers. Guess who qualifies quickly if those baselines mirror Arctic norms? Cooperation with China stays arm's length. Publicly they align, research exchanges, satellite downlinks, logistics tips. Underneath they compete for who runs the dashboard. Russia offers know-how and crisis muscle. China brings capital, ships, and sensors. Each learns from the other while guarding its crown jewels. For Moscow, convoy control. For Beijing, data ownership. In a crunch, they'll co-brand a safety convoy and split the optics. One escorts, one forecasts. Both bank leverage. Micro story, a southern SAR drill adopts a towage checklist lifted from Arctic playbooks. Response time drops. Insurers flag the protocol as gold standard and price to it. Ports adopt the template, carriers comply to save premiums. Overnight, Russia isn't in the queue, it's in the rulebook. By the early 2030s, watch for 3 signals. 1, NSR summers stabilize enough that charter parties write Arctic options alongside southern clauses. 2, Russian technical teams appear in Southern Hydrographic and SAR consortia as neutral experts. 3, premium sheets reference Arctic validated equipment for Southern compliance. No flags planted, no bases built, just a side door propped open with precedent. And when 2048 talk turns procedural, the voice that says, "We've run this movie before," will carry farther than you think. Timelines and tripwires, from now to 2048. Let's make this concrete. We're not talking about a far-off someday. We're talking a staged rollout where hardware, software, and law move in lockstep. 3 phases with tripwires that tell you the map is quietly updating. 2025 to 2030 is infrastructure and standards. Ports finish the unsexy upgrades. Heated hose reels, cold ironing where feasible, class-approved tug refits, and pilot simulators calibrated for Magellan and Beagle quirks. The open sensor mesh goes live. HF radars along the approaches, quarterly multi-beam runs, iceberg drifters seeded each shoulder season, and SAR tasking windows reserved on radar satellites. Insurers pilot Southern compliance products tied to that data, and port digital twins get their first actuarial audit so underwriters can query dispatch logs, not marketing slides. Charter parties add Southern option language with explicit triggers, Red Sea risk levels, Panama Q thresholds, and forecast criteria pulled from the shared nowcast. Meanwhile, Allied auxiliaries and research vessels normalize presence with annual drills that turn handshakes into muscle memory. If you see two things in this window, the first insurer publishing premium bans for dashboard-compliant sailings and a mirrored pilot curriculum recognized by both countries, you'll know Phase 1 stuck. In this same stretch, capital moves faster than speeches. Export credit agencies back tug and bunker capacity with climate conditions. Chinese financing closes on storage yards, comms nodes, or ground stations in one port. Western guarantees land on tugs, sensor arrays, and digital twins in the other. You'll also see fleet orders with Southern-optimized specs, reinforced bows, de-icing systems, resilient electronics, and anti-roll solutions tuned for long-period swells. These aren't polar cruisers, they're box and bulk ships hardened for heavy-head seas. Tripwire, a major liner, announces a seasonal Magellan service with time guarantees baked into contracts. That's the first permanent notch, and a scarcity urgency trigger audiences respond to. 2030 to 2035 is normalization and soft militarization. The ice-capable share of working tonnage ticks up, not to smash flows, but to keep headway and avoid slamming when the window narrows. SAR compacts formalize. Joint call trees, interoperability templates, towage checklists, and medevac protocols drilled and published. Port state control leans into the code. Documentation pre-clearance gets teeth. Inspection time guarantees appear for ships streaming telemetry, and enhanced inspection becomes the polite label for non-compliant operators who arrive whenever they please. The convoy concept reappears, branded as environmental monitoring sprints. Advisory routing, staggered pilot ladders, bunkering pre-assignments, and SAR assets pre-positioned along a corridor. Everybody calls it stewardship. In practice, it's schedule control. Data gets political here. The baseline open model stays public, but premium layers, priority SAR tasking, higher frequency buoy feeds, vessel backhauls, get priced and preferential. Insurers formalize the carrots. Double-digit premium reductions for ships that stick inside the envelope and accept spot boardings for verification. Deductibles that jump if you decline advisories and then need help. You'll also see cable talk turn practical, route studies around the cone, shore landing sites scoped, and hazard maps tied to the latest bathymetry. Tripwire, a Southern advisory center, starts issuing bulletins that media and regulators quote as authoritative during storms. When that voice anchors the narrative in a crisis, the corridor's governance is real. By 2035 to 2048, it's political choreography. Treaty lobbying ramps. Coalitions form around safety first, language, stricter dual-use transparency, inspections with telemetry, and mandatory incident reporting, framed as protecting the environment, not policing rivals. Behind the public sessions, shadow resource surveys expand. Deep geophysics under scientific programs, broadband acoustics mapped as iceberg detection, and seabed character cataloged for benthic studies. None of it breaks the letter, all of it banks leverage. The ports by now run digital twins as operating systems. Berth conflicts solved 48 hours ahead, tug maintenance cycles coordinated across both cities, pilot fatigue tracked, and ETAs reconciled with weather overlays and insurer criteria. The lane sells variance reduction as a service. Social proof will be obvious. Cargo owners start requiring the certified lane in tenders. If you want hard signals, watch 4 tripwires in this phase. 1. A port nationalization or forced concession renegotiation around data governance, usually framed as sovereignty, actually about control of the dashboard. 2. A denied access incident with paper-clean justifications, safety thresholds, tug shortages, environmental inspections, that carries real commercial penalty for an operator outside the network. 3. A data blackout during a storm window, technical outage, followed by the swift publication of an MOU that centralizes who can publish advisories. 4. Insurers delist a southern port from green lane eligibility until it adopts the Alliance standard, then relist it after reforms. When insurers wield the stick and ports publicly bend, the market is writing rules faster than diplomats. Meanwhile, Russia leans in from the flank. By early 203s, NSR summers stabilize enough that charter parties include Arctic options. Arctic validated, kit starts showing up on Southern compliance lists, tow lines, de-icing rescue protocols, blurring procedures across poles. Russian technical teams appear in Southern hydrographic and SAR consortia as neutral experts, bringing convoy doctrine and equipment baselines that insurers like because they reduce ambiguity. The tripwire there is language. The moment Southern premium sheets begin referencing Arctic standards for Southern compliance, you're watching precedent become policy. Back to everyday life. As the corridor matures, retailers and cargo owners start booking Southern slots during Red Sea surges to stabilize shelves and cut stockout risk. Freight futures build a Southern basis. Spreads price storm season. EU ETS and other carbon regimes give a quiet boost to predictable, shorter deviations over long, high-variance detours. CFOs build a carbon column into routing decisions and reward ports that can certify lower idle time emissions. When a procurement team writes certified Southern route into tenders, the spreadsheet shift is irreversible. And the 2048 door. Expect a managed fight, not a cliff. Status quo defenders push for stronger inspections, real-time telemetry, and audit trails as the price of any station upgrade or winter operation. The managed flex camp argues for expanded scientific drilling, deeper geophysics, and permanent logistics for safety, with environmental offsets and verified protocols. The contested review block floats a resource regime framework years ahead of any extraction. Royalties, baselines, compliance tech, couched in stewardship and transparency. In every scenario, the loudest voices will be the ones with receipts. SAR saved lives, advisories reduced spills, dashboards cut incidents, and billions of dollars of cargo moved inside a verifiable envelope. So the timeline isn't about planting flags. It's about habituating a lane. Build the hardware now, wire the data by 203, normalize procedures by 2035, and walk into 2048 with a corridor that markets trust and insurers price as default. Miss the tripwires. Let data centralize without scrutiny. Let pretexts turn into gatekeeping, or let inspections become arbitrary, and the lane becomes a rent machine for whoever owns the stack. Hit the tripwires in the right way, open standards, mirrored procedures, audited models, and the South becomes a pressure valve for a system short on those. Either way, the clock is already ticking. The next 5 years decide whether this route is a contingency or a habit. After that, habits decide policy. The consumer impact, inflation by ocean. So what does all of this mean when you're just trying to buy groceries, fuel your car, or keep a factory line running? When routes lengthen, risk premiums rise, and schedules wobble, the price tags don't stay at sea. They come home. Start with energy. When tankers avoid Suez or slow for southern windows, crude and refined products take longer to arrive and cost more to insure. That delay shows up as tighter inventories for refineries, wider crack spreads, and more price volatility at the pump. Even a modest, recurring detour pushes wholesale prices up a few cents per liter, which retailers pass through quickly. And because diesel runs trucks and farm equipment, higher diesel costs echo into food and construction almost immediately. Grains next. Bulk carriers moving wheat, corn, and soy live and die by lake-ins and harvest windows. If a vessel misses a discharge window because it rerouted south or queued for pilots, you see demurrage, overtime at the terminal, and spoil risk. That cost folds into futures and spot markets, nudging bread and animal feed prices up months later. Add fertilizer to that loop, phosphates and potash on longer routes with higher insurance, and you've just taxed next season's harvest before it's planted. Electronics and appliances carry their own pain. Those products ride on precise timetables into distribution centers that operate just in time. When a string of sailings detours and arrives bunched, warehouses surge overtime and air freight a portion of SKUs to avoid stockouts. Air freight is the nuclear option on cost per kilo. You won't see a 20% jump at checkout, but you'll see fewer promos, slower restocks on hot items, and temporary unavailability flags that keep prices sticky. Now layer in insurance. We talked about conditional discounts for ships sailing inside the dashboard. Great for compliant fleets, but the baseline risk environment still moved up. War risk adders in the Red Sea era, higher hull premiums for storm season, and bigger deductibles for non-compliance all end up in the all-in freight rate. Importers don't absorb that out of charity. They distribute it across product lines. Sometimes it's pennies per unit. Across a supermarket basket, those pennies add up. Carbon costs are the quiet multiplier. For EU-bound goods, extra days at sea are now priced through emissions schemes. If carriers choose longer, safer routes, the carbon column grows unless they counter with speed management and better routing. Retailers with net zero pledges will pay more for certified lower variance southern slots because predictable ETAs reduce idle time at anchor, less wasted fuel, fewer emissions. That premium rolls into shelf prices or shrinks margins. Either way, consumers fund reliability. Supply chains respond by redesigning. Some buyers nearshore assembly to Mexico, Eastern Europe, or North Africa to cut exposure to sea lanes. Others South Shore, building South America, to South America loops that rely on Magellan services and skip risky canals entirely. Both strategies reduce transit variance but increase unit costs at first. New suppliers, smaller batches, learning curves. Expect a period where SKUs fragment, a premium line that's reliability sourced, and a budget line that rides cheaper, riskier lanes with longer lead times. The behavioral nudge here is clarity. Buyers pay for certainty when they can explain it to customers. Market volatility is the background hum. Freight futures will build a southern basis. When storm season or Red Sea spikes hit, hedgers push rates up to secure space, and importers lock contracts earlier. You'll see retail prices move in steps rather than smooth curves, stable for a quarter, then a sudden shelf reset as a new freight contract takes effect. Promotions get time to calmer windows. Holiday inventory orders shift earlier to avoid December weather roulette. There's a political cascade too. As transport costs creep into food and fuel, governments reach for subsidies or windfall taxes. You'll hear calls for green lanes funding, temporary VAT cuts on staples, or targeted fuel rebates for truckers. Maritime protectionism also gets louder. Preference for certified ports, pressure on carriers to publish route emissions, and tender requirements that quietly favor allied corridors. Helpful in the short run, but every condition adds compliance cost, which again finds its way to receipts. Who feels it most? Small importers and mid-market brands. Big box retailers can negotiate compliance discounts, book certified southern windows in peak risk periods, and split their flows across multiple corridors. A regional furniture importer can't. They'll either raise prices or stretch lead times and inventory buffers, both of which tie up cash. Over a year, that kills product variety and tilts the field towards scale players. There is a pressure valve: transparency. When ports publish time guarantees, insurers post premium bans, and carriers share compliance status, buyers can choose certainty deliberately. That lets procurement teams map which SKUs deserve the reliable lane and which can tolerate variance. It's not glamorous, but it trims the worst inflation by matching risk to product value. Micro story: a grocery chain split its banana and avocado flows. Bananas took the cheaper Cape route off-peak. Avocados, with tighter ripening windows and higher unit value, booked the certified southern slot during Red Sea flare-ups. Shelf prices reflected it. Bananas steady, avocados up 7% for 2 months, but wastage dropped and stockouts vanished. Customers grumbled less than they did during empty shelf weeks the prior year. Here's the bottom line you'll notice in daily life. Fewer screaming shortages, more quietly higher prices, more order by dates that arrive a week earlier in holiday season, fewer flash sales on imported appliances, a little more back in stock on date on electronics pages, and a new label slipping into corporate sustainability reports. Route reliability spend. That's the line item that buys you predictability. If the southern corridor matures the open way, standardized procedures, audited data, stable insurance, its inflation effect moderates. You pay a small premium for reliability instead of a big penalty for chaos. If it consolidates in opaque stacks with selective access, you'll get the opposite: periodic sticker shock and a lot of finger pointing at the weather. Either way, the ocean has entered your receipt. The only question is whether you're paying for certainty or for surprises. The off-ramp: how to prevent a southern toll booth. Okay, so here's the thing. This doesn't have to calcify into a rent machine. If the South becomes a habit, we can still choose whether it's a public lane with clear rules or a private corridor with hidden switches. The off-ramp is voluntary coordination that feels mandatory because it makes everyone richer, safer, and faster. Start with the backbone: a multilateral SAR and data sharing pact. Not a grand treaty, an operational compact signed by Chile, Argentina, allied coast guards, and observer partners that already operate down south. The deliverables are concrete: a shared incident log with real-time entries, a common distress playbook, channels, call signs, response priorities that all signatories drill twice a year, satellite tasking windows pre-allocated for storm peaks, and a pooled buoy and drifter program where data is public by default within minutes, not months. The rule is simple: if your sensors ride southern waters, their safety data feeds the commons. You can sell premium models on top, but wave heights, iceberg drift, and hazard alerts are a public good. This diffuses scarcity bias and removes the sense of a secret map. Now, this is important because data equality kills information tolls. When everyone sees the same baseline and can audit it, advisory routes stop looking like private lanes and start reading like weather facts. That lets insurers peg minimum discounts to the open feed and reserve extra carrots for premium layers. The floor rises for all. The ceiling stays a market. Next lever, neutral port standards with transparent pricing and open access. Think of it as the Southern Safe Passage Code turned into a certification. Ports publish inspection checklists, documentation sets, pilot dispatch SLAs, tug thresholds, and inspection timing guarantees. Fees are listed, indexed to fuel costs and labor, and reviewed annually by a mixed board: port authorities, pilots, insurers, cargo owners, and an environmental auditor. Surprise surcharges are banned. Any extraordinary fee requires a public incident ID. If a port fails its SLAs, it credits the ship automatically. You can still prioritize compliant vessels, but the path to green lane is open and the rules are written. No back-channel berths, no special paperwork for friends of friends. We need an ice-capable tonnage pool, 2 common carriers under alliance flags. Not nuclear icebreakers, multi-mission auxiliaries and reinforced tugs contracted collectively by a consortium of ports, coast guards, and insurers. Their tasking charter is published. Environmental monitoring, convoy leadership during shoulder windows, emergency towage, and medevac support. Slot requests go through a queue anyone can see. The funding model is a small levy on certified Southern calls plus matching funds from export credit agencies. The payoff is margin. When storms pinch, there's no single rescuer who can set the rhythm unilaterally. The pool sets a schedule that's predictable and fair because it's visible. Lawfare, but with guardrails. If we're going to use inspections and advisories, we need a neutral appeals process and audit trails. Enter the Southern Operations Auditor, a compact appointed body staffed by rotating port state control veterans, maritime lawyers, and data engineers. They don't set policy. They certify that inspections followed the checklist, advisories met published thresholds, and green lane decisions aligned with the code. Ships can file a 48-hour appeal. Auditors answer with a public ruling. Get dinged twice, and your port loses certification until it fixes the process. That's how you prevent safety from becoming a euphemism for slow them down. The environmental plank must be real, not PR. Build mandatory spill readiness radii with equipment caches audited quarterly. Require cold ironing where practical and verified low sulfur fuel for certified windows. Tie ballast protocols to sensor backhauls and random sampling. And give NGOs a formal seat on the code board with rights to inspect gear and audit logs. Why? Because when the green layer is credible, insurers price it favorably, brands adopt it, and the corridor's legitimacy locks in. Stewardship becomes a market advantage, not a slogan. To align incentives, we need insurance architecture that rewards compliance without creating dependency on any one dashboard. London Nordic syndicates can publish standard premium bands for code-compliant sailings based on the open baseline. Private route optimizers can still sell an edge, but the baseline discount is table stakes. Reinsurers can require ports to stream anonymized operational telemetry, pilot dispatch stats, tug uptime inspection times as a condition for keeping certification. If the data stops, the discount stops. That's pressure without politics. What about capital? Solve that with distributed financing and anti-capture clauses. Export credit agencies and multilaterals fund tug refits, bunker infrastructure, pilot academies, and digital twins. But every loan includes open data and non-discrimination covenants. Chinese or Western money is welcome if it respects the code. No exclusive berthing rights, no data lockups, no silent vetoes over SAR tasking. Concessions include a use it or lose it clause for capacity. Misperformance targets and the slot reverts to the port. Everyone can invest, nobody can privatize the valve. Micro Story, a carrier coalition approached both ports with a carrot. They offered to pre-commit seasonal volume if the ports adopted the code, published inspection guarantees, and integrated the open model. Ushuaia wanted a quiet side letter. The coalition refused. Punta Arenas implemented the package and got the volume. 6 months later, Ushuaia matched the code and won a second tranche. The lesson spread faster than any communique. Transparency sells dock time. To keep law and logistics aligned, run annual open drills, clear south. 2 weeks where certified ships sail advisory convoys, ports test inspection guarantees, auditors shadow boardings, and NGOs observe spill gear checks. Results are public. Scorecards show which nodes kept promises. The laggards get help, not shame. Funds unlock for fixes. The leaders earn a visible badge and better premiums. That turns the code into a living system, not a binder on a shelf. You probably think this sounds bureaucratic. It's the opposite. It strips away ad hoc friction, so the only toll you pay is competence. The corridor gets safer because data from every sensor improves the shared model. It gets cheaper because insurers don't have to guess. It gets fairer because priorities follow published rules. And it stays flexible because anyone can add capacity if they meet the standard. Final safeguard: treaty reaffirmation with teeth on dual-use transparency. Member states agree to quarterly station disclosures, sensor inventories, data purposes, and downlink logs, audited by rotating inspection teams. Military personnel and assets can support science and SAR as always, but their roles and data outputs are logged. Ground stations get independent spectrum audits. Survey campaigns file public EIAs with raw data summaries released after operational windows close. That doesn't criminalize capability, it clarifies intent. If we don't take this off-ramp, the default is drift. Standards will emerge anyway, written by whoever shows up first with money, hulls, and models. Access will become a favor, not a right. Inspections will stretch for the wrong ships and evaporate for the right ones. But if ports, carriers, coast guards, insurers, and NGOs lock in an open code now, the South becomes what the world actually needs: a pressure valve with rules everyone can read and incentives everyone can live with. Make rescue the foundation, not the pretext, and the corridor stays a public lane. No toll booth needed. That clarity is the ultimate persuasion lever. The single takeaway: chokepoints are engineered in layers, access rules, shared data, steady presence, and those layers decide who waits and who moves. If you want the southern map decoded with names, money flows, and the 2048 lobby play, subscribe now and watch the deep dive I linked. I'll blueprint the ports, ships, insurers, and standards you'll see first, then who benefits when they lock. If this shifted your view even slightly, that's the psychology working. Reward it with a sub so the next episode finds you first.